Okay, so this is just a last minute. Hey, I'm going to jump on, do a little bit of live coding because I was going to do some coding anyway. So why not do it live? Get a little practice in. So, let's see. Last time I was working with updating the build for some of my libraries, and by the way, I actually did get the Linux build working. It ended up being something really stupid of me. I was actually I had included the reference assemblies in the directory build props, but only for the source folder and not for the test folder where all my test projects were. So I had some tests that were running on or trying to run on the .NET framework, which wouldn't have worked on Linux anyway. So I just turned off that framework for those tests, and then it worked just fine the way it's supposed to. So we got the Linux builds working. Actually, let me show this. Better to show than talk, right? So let's jump into. Let's see, where were we? Dependency injection was where we were looking at that before. And the problem that I had, so I'd added the reference assemblies here in my directory build props, and then changed my build to run on Ubuntu instead of Windows. And what I had forgotten was that actually my test project was trying to build in Windows, and that's what was actually causing the compiler errors. If I actually read it probably a little more carefully, I would have seen that. So to fix that, all I did was I took this Net461 target framework, which was up here, in other words, it was always being built, and just moved it down here. So that when I run the tests locally, I run them against Net461 as well as Netcore 2, Netcore 3, and the upcoming Netcore 5. Or just .NET 5. It's not Netcore anymore. So when I'm running these tests locally, it runs these tests against all 4 frameworks. When I run them in the CI environment now, it's only running them with .NET Core apps and the non-preview versions, which is fine. So that's what I ended up with on the dependency injection project. And then let's see, since then, what else did I do? I did something else. So on Sunday, I think I was looking at disposables a bit, and I merged in that NetStandard 2.1 branch with all the async disposable stuff. So that's all now in here. And what I'm doing right now is working on this reference counted disposable, because I think that that's a common enough use case. And even though RX already provides one, I think that this being, a disposables library that's really just for disposable types, I think there's some value in having this library cover all the common disposable scenarios. So, I realized when I was writing this reference counter disposable just a little while ago that that actually a lot of the behavior, or I want it to also wrap a disposable, and this is something else that's in the list here. So if I go to disposables, pardon for the white background. Let's turn that back on there. That should look a little better on the video because my green screen is really not happy with the lighting I have right now. There's no good lighting in this room since it is after dark where I live. So, let's see. What was I saying? Disposables. Oh yes, the issues. One of these issues is for in here. I thought I actually had that as an issue in this project. Maybe not. Oh wait. Yep, here it is. Consider adding a simple fixed disposable. And then I changed it to say, well, I'm not planning to do this. And now I'm like, well, you know, I may as well do it because I need that anyway. Yeah, welcome to open source. Who knows what's going on, right? All right, so the idea behind this wrapped disposable is this is going to be a disposable wrapper that just enforces the semantics that dispose is a no-op if it's called more than once. So the first time dispose is called, it actually disposes the thing. All the future times disposes a no-op. There are some disposable types out there that do not follow that semantic. And sometimes you need them to. So this wrapped disposable is just going to be a type that wraps misbehaving disposable, or one that chooses not to follow those semantics, and ensures that it can be safely disposed multiple times. And yeah, so that's it. And actually the implementation, I'm going to cheat a little bit here because the collection disposable already does this. So what I'm going to end up doing is actually just wrapping a collection disposable. And we're going to have, actually I'm going to have this auto-generate for me. Except this is not going to be that. I'm going to new up a collection disposable. And give it that disposable. And now I have a proper wrapper. And actually, you know what? I'm going to want this to be of type collection disposable, not just disposable, because I'm also going to want to expose. I've got a number of like helper properties. So, is it disposed? Has the dispose started? And is the dispose is disposed completed? That's the same thing. And there's is disposed started, and then there's is disposing. Like, is it currently disposing? And these are useful and sometimes. So I'm just gonna. I don't have them here. Oh, it's because they're under single disposable. That's why. So they're actually exposed by the single disposable type, which everything else in this library kind of depends on. And that's the thing that gives you the only dispose once semantics, or dispose only disposes a single time. Hence the name single disposable. Yeah, where did I have that? Oh, and the reference counted, of course. So I want to forward these to this underlying type. And then I'm going to come back here and kind of clean this up and make it use wrapped disposable instead of collection disposable. I think that's a cleaner design. So I'm just going to do all of this, and then the only other thing to do is implement dispose, which is implemented by forwarding it directly to the wrapper. And that's literally like I'm going to consistently use wrapped disposable here. What is a wrapped disposable? I'm just going to say that right now. I really hate these kind of things. It's like, really? The disposable to wrap? You know, whatever. But I don't know how else to say it. Okay. So we've got a wrapped disposable now, and I'm just going to go ahead and add an async version, since everything, you know, from now on has got to have an async equivalent, async disposable equivalent. So let me steal my if-def blocks. And I should be streaming in full HD this time. Let me double check, because last time that was a mistake. Let's see. If I can find it. Video, yes. Should be outputting 1080 this time. Last time I did not realize it was only streaming in 720, which is why the video is fuzzy. This one should turn out better, hopefully. Alright, so let's make this an async disposable then. That's going to be async disposable. I got a feeling I'm just going to copy that async a lot. So this is going to be a collection async disposable. Async disposable, new collection async disposable. Blah blah blah. This all comes through, and then dispose async, and this needs to return value task. It should be that. Now we have the async equivalent. Alright. So, jumping back into reference counter disposable. Let's see. Alright, so what I'd like to do. So reference counter disposable, and I kind of went back and forth on the semantics of this one for a while. Should the creation of a reference counted disposable wrapper itself take the first reference count? And the advantage of not doing that is that, well, is that really an advantage? I don't know. Would you always want at least one reference count? I think so. But then this one, like your first reference count, is completely different than the other reference counts because it's actually the reference counted wrapper itself. Awkward semantics. But I think that's the way to do it. So, let's see here. This is now going to be the wrapped disposable. And we're just going to do this instead, just for clarity here. Right, so this is going to handle, we wrap it in a wrapped disposable to make sure that this disposable only gets this dispose called once. And I think that that's especially important when you're talking about a reference counter disposable, because if you have a reference counter disposable, that immediately puts you in like this unusual or advanced use case kind of scenario. Most people don't need this. So I'm thinking that that there's a higher likelihood that disposables passed in here may not have the dispose only acts once semantics. They may be like more advanced types. That's my guess. So that's why I have the wrapper here. And then I actually call add reference to create the first reference. And then this reference counter disposable is itself disposable, which actually only disposes the initial reference count. A little hard to wrap your head around, I think, but I couldn't really think of a better API for this. Reference is super simple. Increments the count. When it's disposed, it decrements the count, and if the count is 0, it disposes the wrapped disposable. If the count comes up and down after this, after the dispose is called, this actually all still goes through. The count is still incremented, the count is still decremented. It calls the wrapped disposable.dispose again, but that is a no-op at that point, so it doesn't matter. It would be more efficient to avoid this whole creation at all, but it would make the interlocked code much more complicated, and I really avoid lock-free code if at all possible. So I'm just not going to do that. I don't think it's that much. The performance would be that much difference anyway. Alright, so, and then this one also will dispose its reference count. And one other nice thing about using the anonymous disposable here is that this also has dispose only once semantics. So if you have a reference count, if you have a disposable that, okay, so you have a reference count wrapping another disposable. You've got this reference countable wrapper. And then you call add reference on that and you get a disposable back. Well, then when that disposable is disposed from the add reference, that's freeing the reference. Well, you can call that multiple times and it won't free multiple references. It'll just free the one reference one time. So you get some really nice semantics by using these wrappers, and really this type is quite simple. It ended up being a lot simpler than what I thought it would be for that reason, because we're building on these other wrapper types in the library. So this is based on like an earlier iteration of this. So I'm going to update the async one to be equivalent to the non-async one. Just gonna walk through here each little thing. I'm assuming that's still necessary, but we shall see soon enough. So I'm going to have a wrapped disposable, which is the actual type. Okay, let's convert this to a statement body. Just gonna get out of all this stuff I was working with before. There. So I'm going to call this dispose implementation also, because I think it's clearer that this is like what we're using to implement dispose for this instance. Blah, blah, blah. May not be null is important. Should copy that over for the parameter comments. Takes an async disposable. This wrapped disposable becomes so this is a wrapped async disposable. Check. Yeah, of course this needs to be a wrapped async disposable. And then the disposable implementation is just reference. I want to copy over these properties too. I'm just a little bad about copying these everywhere, but it's the easiest way to make it work well. And these properties actually refer to, so this is where this can get a little confusing, because everywhere else in this library, like is disposed refers to the instance that it's on. And in this case, the reference counted disposables, their disposal is actually disposal of that initial reference count. The real question that you want answered is, has my wrapped disposable been disposed? That's what's more important. So that's why these properties actually refer to the wrapped disposable and not the actual like dispose, has been disposed and called on this instance or not. A little confusing, possibly. We'll see if anybody complains about it, about the API. Looks good. Alright, and of course we've got our sync disposable up here. And our along with the XML comments. And this one. Just realized it wasn't running. Back here. Let's get that going. Okay. So that should be sufficient for that. And this one, yes, it's saying, hey, you need to dispose this in your dispose method. But because it's actually a reference counted one, it will actually be disposed by the dispose method, assuming that all the other references have already been disposed. So it's just that the compiler or fxcop isn't capable of discovering that, so that's why we have to hide the warning. Right on. Okay. Let's see. So that should be decent. Alright, so yeah. So one of the things that I can do now, which I really like, is... Oh, whoops. I gotta push force on there. That's fine. What I can do is grab my directory build props and say, hey, this is going to be a 2.2 version. Save that. And just going to commit that one thing as its own. And now I'm going to get push force. I'm doing a force because the incoming commit I want to discard because I rebased earlier. I just never pushed to the new branch. So we can watch the new build system work. Maybe, hopefully. Hopefully. Let's see. Yeah, it's building. It should be building in the Linux system right now, as opposed to Windows. If you were watching along on Saturday, you can only get it working on Windows this time. So, building on Linux. So let's see here. I mentioned code coverage. Code coverage is also, I did. That is also working, and getting that working was so easy. I was very pleased. So literally code coverage. If you create a new test project, it will actually automatically include coverlet collector, which is great. And then in order to actually build your first you run your tests with this special parameter. I added this in order to include code coverage collection, and this writes up code coverage with some XML files, and then literally to publish it, all you have to do on CodeCov, which is what I use for this. This is literally all you have to do is just include these couple of lines for this CodeCov action. You know, no tokens, nothing else, as long as it's open source, so you can see the code in the repository. This is literally all you have to do, and then that ends up looking like, it's publishing right now. That ends up looking like, so I can come over here to my code coverage. It's got the little badge here saying, hey, it's 98%. And I can jump in here, and it'll show me everything I need to see here. And I can see I've got some code that's not covered, and anonymous async disposable. Alright. Okay. So this is the situation where if we have code... Oh, right, okay. So this specific code branch only happens if there are multiple disposed delegates, right? Which is rare, but it's allowed with these anonymous disposable types. So that has multiple disposed delegates to call, and they are running serially. And they're running concurrently. This branch is for the concurrent branch, so it's running them all together. So if they're running concurrently and there's multiple of them, if there's only one, it doesn't even enter this method. It gets handled up here, and then the serial case is in here, so it runs them one after the other, which is the new default behavior. I did do like a switch kind of at the last minute based on feedback. to have all the asynchronous disposables. By default, they just dispose one after another. So your collection disposable, your anonymous disposable with multiple delegates, they dispose one after another instead of concurrently. But there's a concurrent flag, so you can turn that on if you wanted to. Alright, so wanted to double check the actions here. So that code coverage is really great. I mean, literally, you pass an extra flag to test, and you add this little you add this thing to upload to CodeCov, which sometimes doesn't work apparently. Oh well, that's fine. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Did it go ahead and publish the packages? It did. Yeah. So this is just so nice once you get this build working, because now it's got the NuGet package published and symbols package published with symbols that are linked to this specific commit. Beautiful. What I'd love to see is that kind of behavior right out of the box. Unfortunately, you need all this. All this should be default behavior. But oh well. What can you do? Alright, so that's actually wrapping it up for disposables then. I think that's pretty much everything I needed to do tonight. That completes, that's actually done in that branch. Add range support, I don't know if I'm going to do that. I don't know if anybody actually wants that. I do want to do these kind of things for the version 3. This is backwards incompatible, so it's got to be a version 3 kind of change. Even though it would probably break no one. It's better to bump the major version anyway. So we've got a reference counter disposable. I actually did end up doing this as part of the reference counter disposable. And this one, I wanted to create what I want is a type def. C# does not support type defs. So, let's see. I don't know the cleanest way to do that, actually. I don't really want to duplicate the data. Let's see. Well, that's for another time. Again, that's like version 3 time frame. It will not be today. So let's see. We did disposables. Now is on the new build system. I want to keep like migrating that build system through some of my other libraries. The next library that I usually tackle is comparers. Comparers is interesting. But I think I'm going to leave that for another time. It's getting a little late here, so I'm going to sign off. But I think next time I'm going to take this build system that's now been enhanced with code coverage and everything else that my old build system has. And I'm going to use that, or I've used it for 2 libraries now, the dependency injection and the disposables. I think next time I'm going to move it into comparers. Comparers is interesting because it's like the next step up in complexity. And it's interesting because not only does it have multiple libraries, each of these is a separate NuGet package, but it also has a number of NuSpec files. So there's actually this, so there's a meta package NuSpec file first off, and then there's these like these old namespace NuSpec files, and all these do is they point, or they don't really point to the new one. This was before NuGet had the idea of package deprecation, so you could point a package to a new package. And these ones, they just take a dependency. So you've got like comparers IX. Well, let's take a look at comparers because that's the more obvious one. So this is the actual like NuGet package ID, comparers, and this was back before I was prefixing everything with Nito. So now it's Neato compares. And all this package does is take a dependency on that one, so that people using the old package ID, they can just continue to upgrade and see all the same version upgrades and everything as this one, only they actually just pull in this one instead. It's just to keep, so that they don't have to change their package and their package ID and get like left out without any good, there's no really good upgrade story there. So that's why I do that for the compares library. So this one has some interesting build scripts. This is using the full old build system. It's got a separate PowerShell script for code coverage, got a separate PowerShell script just for building, and a separate PowerShell script for updating the version. All these are going away with the new build system, as well as appver.yaml goes away, gets replaced by the build YAML for GitHub Actions. So as we can see, this one has some special things in here where it has to do its own NuGet packing, and that's really all that it's doing special. So this is like an intermediate level of complexity of build system. So I'm going to tackle this one next time, and as part of that upgrade, I'm going to take all these new spec files, and I'm going to translate them all into CSproj files. And this should be doable. It should be doable. There's certain attributes you have to use for metadata only NuGet packages built from CSproj files. But we will tackle that next time, and I will be sure to give more advance warning next time I jump on, because that is going to be something that I think a lot of people will be interested in. So, I'm signing off. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you all next time.